Hello and welcome back. I'm Devin, back with another tutorial video to help you improve at VoiceOver. It's been a while since my last video. I appreciate your patience. Some stuff came up. I won't bore you with the details. As a reward, stick around at the end of this video for a clip from my trip to Japan. So, let's talk about VoiceOver. Recently, we've been discussing audiobook editing techniques, scheduling tips, that sort of thing. It's been a while since we've discussed voiceover technique specifically, so I figured, let's change that. Because we don't want to neglect our technique. It's the thing that makes us interesting to listen to in the first place. All the editing, marketing, and networking in the world won't amount to much if the technique isn't there. It's what makes a performance good, or not so good. In previous videos, we've discussed the elements of a good voiceover performance. Stuff like really thinking through the context of who you are as the speaker, who you're speaking to, where and why, what type of energy to use, articulation, pacing, tone. In a previous video, we've also discussed change-ups specifically, and check below for the link to that. And we're going to be discussing change-ups again in this video, but I wanted to go a bit more in-depth on how to implement them effectively. Let's start by reviewing the basics. What is a change-up and why does it matter? Great questions. A change-up is any significant shift in your manner of speaking that changes the nature of how you sound. Since there are many elements that go into how you sound, like tone of voice, volume, and pacing, there are many things that you can change that will add variety to your performance. The reason change-ups are so important has to do with that word I just used, variety. Simply put, if your performance lacks variety, it comes off as dull. If you read everything the same, you're just going to lose your audience's attention. Now, when it comes to how we deliver a script or copy, one of the main objectives should be to sound natural, meaning you don't want to sound rehearsed. You want to sound as if you're thinking of what you want to say as you say it. And if you've ever paid attention to how we speak in any given conversation, you might have noticed that we tend to phrase things according to how we think. By which I mean, when we have a new thought, we tend to alter how we say it. That's what change-ups are. So, when should you use a change-up? Anytime during your voiceover performance that you have a new thought. Let's go to my booth for some examples. Welcome back to the booth. I'm going to read a couple of commercial scripts that I wrote to demonstrate the types of change-ups that you can utilize. Here's the first one. Hey, do you hear that? That's adventure calling. It's saying, time to shake things up. Get out there. Explore. We hear it too, which is why with Travelry, it's never been easier to find the best hotel room for the lowest price. So, wherever adventure takes you, we'll be there. Did you detect the different change-ups in how I performed that copy? There's nothing in the script that tells me where to put a change-up. It's all in how you interpret the copy, the choices that you make. This is actually a really good example because it contains a number of different types of change-ups, all within a pretty short read. The first of which is a change in tone. Between the first and second sentences, do you hear that? That's adventure calling. And again between, get out there, explore. We hear it too. My delivery shifts from whispery confidential to excited, and then from excited triumphant to more friendly and natural. Lots of things contribute to a change in tone, but mainly it's an emotional shift. As you'll see though, elements like volume and energy have a big impact on this and can be considered change-ups in their own right. Next, we have a change of pace, which has to do with how quickly or slowly you say something. The most obvious example in the sample copy is within the first sentence. Hey, do you hear that? Big pause, much slower. And then, that's adventure calling. It's saying, time to shake things up. You see, slow, then fast. It changes again with explore. We hear it too. Faster, and then it pulls back to a steadier, slower pace, a deliberate pace. A change of volume is pretty self-explanatory and probably the easiest of the bunch to identify. The first sentence is whispered. Hey, do you hear that? And then, that's adventure calling. Suddenly louder, A change in volume, you get it. Next, we have a change in energy, which is similar to a change in tone. It occurs when there's an emotional shift. Do you hear that? That's adventure calling. But it has more to do with how you express the emotion. The first sentence is said in a whisper, but it's still intense. The second sentence and the rest of that thought is also intense, but in a different way. Overjoyed, ecstatic. So it shifts from tense to ecstatic, and then later to upbeat, more confident. We hear it too, which is why a change of energy is a little hard to define. It's something that you feel, if that makes sense. A quality you imbue your words with rather than a meaning you communicate. The last type of change-up I want to demonstrate is a change in articulation. And for this one, I'm going to use my second script just because I don't think that first one lends itself too well to demonstrating this type of thing. Now, this second script, you can actually hear a version of it on my demo, which is on my website, but I'm going to read it differently now than I do there. The way I'm going to read it now is, in my opinion, not the best interpretation of the copy, but I'm going to do it this way to emphasize how a change in articulation might sound. Thanks to Stoveheart, we share a lot around this table. We talk about our day, baseball games and report cards, birthday parties and new friends, responsibilities, values, love. Because Stoveheart's line of ready-made delicious meals keep the focus on what really matters. Family. Maybe you noticed it. When I switch from the first sentence, thanks to Stoveheart, we share a lot around this table, to the beginning of my list, we talk about our day, baseball games and report cards, birthday parties and new friends. I go from enunciating my delivery in a more or less normal manner to intentionally holding on to phrases, not quite slurring them together, but definitely stretching them out. I then follow that up with responsibilities, values, love, very clearly over-articulating the words, every syllable. I did it again at the end with my over-articulated delivery of family. So, why do that? What's the point of switching up your articulation? Emphasis. It changes the emphasis on certain words relative to others. It indicates your attitude. I suppose in theory it's possible to overuse change-ups, to have too many. But if you use them the way I mentioned earlier in conjunction with a change of thought, you're unlikely to do so. But hypothetically, if you were just to use them to sound different, even when it doesn't make sense, it's possible to overdo it. Just be intentional. Pay attention to how it feels. You're far more likely to use too few change-ups in your performance than too many. And there you have it, change-ups. Your secret weapon for keeping things interesting. Make them a core part of your skill set, to the point where you just try them out naturally without too much pre-planning. Was that helpful? Let me know in the comments. I know people tend to gravitate towards the more technical editing tutorials rather than the technique ones, but as I said in the beginning, this stuff is super important. Thanks so much for watching. Like, subscribe, comment, share. I appreciate all of it. Until next time. And now, without further ado, pandas.